So this video is a little bit different. I don't know if I'm even going to release the video, to be honest with you, as I sit here making it. What I do know is that I'm going to be glad I did, and hopefully one day my grandkids or my great-grandkids will see this video. Because I have learned that a lot of times when things happen in history, you hear the big parts, but you miss a lot of important information because people focus so much on the big picture and not what was really happening, so to speak, with people. So as I start this video, it's now 8:55 a.m. Central Time. I'll be honest with you, I delayed 2 minutes to try to put this in time with real time. Now, I was a few minutes off because I was asleep when the first plane hit the first tower, but I wasn't far off. I woke up and turned the TV on right over there, about 15-20 feet from me right now. At what would be 7:55 a.m., I was awake and had a TV on before 8 a.m. in the morning. It was a different time then. I had a very different job, and I had a day off on a Tuesday of all days. In my business, the job that I was doing, I was managing a gift shop. I try to explain this properly, in maybe like a touristy area. And so weekends were our big time, so I got weekdays off. In this case, this time of year, September, I got one day off. This particular day, a Tuesday. And so I was making plans. I was up early. I was going to do some things with my family. I had twins at that time, a boy and a girl, 9 months old, born in January. They were 2 days shy of their 9-month, they were 2 days shy of being 9 months old. So on this particular morning, I walk out right over there, go through this door, turn on the TV, and it was the Today Show. I'll never forget. Certain things you just don't forget. And there was a lot of smoke coming out of what I just saw as a building. I didn't even really have the sound on, so a minute or two in, I turned the sound on. I got to admit, it got me curious. I wanted to see what was going on. And it was Matt Lauer talking to some woman, and she was, of course, very upset. Wasn't really making any sense. They were all over the place. Small plane, big plane, didn't know if it was a plane. Had hit the building. And so I'm trying to get around because here in a few minutes, I'm going to get up. I was married at the time. I'm going to get my wife up and around and our kids up and around, and we're going to go out and have a day. Well, as I'm picking up baby toys and what have you around the room, not really paying any attention, still just not happy to be awake, I hear a scream. And that got my attention because it wasn't what you hear on the news, or especially on a morning show, which is so well choreographed and crafted, and you just never hear someone scream in terror on live TV on the Today Show. At least I never had. But then again, it was a fluke that TV, if someone had been watching Nickelodeon the night before, I would have never known this happened and just left the house that day without any clue. It just so happens that somebody was watching NBC the night before, so when I turned the TV on, there it was, the Today Show, and I was just too tired to mess with it. Otherwise, it could have been anything. I would have left here never knowing any of this. I didn't see the second plane hit. The TV was on like 6 feet from me. I did hear the scream, and it got my attention. Because like I said, it's different than any other thing you ever hear. It was an absolute scream of terror. So I turned around and looked, and the other building is now on fire, I guess, is the best answer for that. Are people arguing over exactly what it was? There was one woman that hit it. She said it was a gigantic plane just flew past my window. I'll never forget that. And then Matt Lauer kind of shushed her down. He's like, no, come on now. Piss off. Something to that effect. And then it wasn't too much longer. They had the actual film, and then Matt Lauer realized, no, it was a gigantic plane. Now, I may be remembering this wrong, but I'm going to put a link to the Today Show so you can check it out and see for yourself. I want to say that the woman that called the plane that flew by her window eventually was proven right. I mean, she pulled it out like a 737 or something. I wouldn't know the name of a plane or the size of a plane. I've flown quite a few, not flown, but flown in. I still don't I'm not the guy that's going to be calling out the size of planes, but she nailed it. I don't know a proper way to explain this to someone that's never like lived it. I think I went into some kind of shock or denial because it was probably another 20 or 30 minutes before anyone was going on TV and saying terrorist attack or we were under attack. On TV, they were still trying to say something. They were wondering if there was a problem with the towers guiding the planes, air traffic control. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm the only one that knew. I'm sure everybody knew. When that second plane hit, my brain knew there was a problem. Now, here's something probably nobody knows about me that's watching this Watchdar videos, but it's nothing we've hidden. Right in the description of our channel, if you go to our About page, it tells you where we live. We live right on top of a functioning nuclear reactor. It's, I don't know, somebody the other day, and I did not research this, it's easy enough to look up. Somebody told me now it's only 1 of 3, but if it's 1 of 100, it doesn't matter. What did matter is we're right on top of a nuclear power plant. Russellville, Arkansas, you can look it up. Now, when I say right on top, 10 miles. But when you're dealing with nuclear problems, 10 miles is right on top of. And at times, depending on the day, I can look out in my yard and see the smoke coming from the cooling tower. That's close enough. I didn't like process it, but I think a normal person may have stayed home that day. Why would you go out? Plane hitting the second tower actually spurred me into action. Woke up my wife, got my kids up, and quickly. So a lot of what I'm about to tell you, look at through the lens for my wife at that time, that she just woke up and she's still half asleep. I'm giving her a bunch of information. She hasn't seen it. There's a difference between someone telling you that a plane's hit the World Trade Center and you actually seeing it, like I did. I know, again, some things, you either get that or you don't. But so she gets in the car and we're driving down the road and I'm explaining things to her. And I think it's the lie I told myself. There was some truth to it. But there is also fear underlying all of this. The lie I told myself was, we're still going to go have our day and nobody's going to stop us. We're going to go and do what we were going to do all along, no matter what. And everybody else is just, panicking over nothing. So we get on the interstate and we drive 60 miles the other direction, mind you, away from the tower. But if it's 10 miles away, of course, any direction past 60 miles is going to be away from. Stepped into a Burger King right as they went from breakfast to lunch. 10:30 would be my best guess because where we went was a little under an hour away. I would think that would be it. The second plane hit here right at 8 o'clock. And I sit for about 15 minutes before my brain kicked into action. Woke everybody up. We got in a car. So 10:30. And this, again, all of this will sound maybe a little off or you won't understand it. But when we went into the Burger King, they had like a playground built into the Burger King. One of few that I've ever seen. It's usually McDonald's. So that's why we took our kids there. And this was 2000. It's not now where you go into a McDonald's now, they got TVs all over the place. It's kind of like some kind of sad bar or something. When we walked in, there was a TV pushed up towards the counter. And it looked like a high school AV, one of those plastic, with the TV on top of it. And somehow they had a picture and they had news. Now, I don't know where they got cable from in the middle of a Burger King. Hell, I used to work in a Burger King. We didn't have cable. But that was the first time at that moment that my wife actually saw this. Now, mind you, she got woke up, we jumped in the car, and I didn't play the radio because all they were doing is it just got worse and worse and worse. Like, if you see it now, or you read it, or you hear it, it's not the same as it was because there was a time, central time, say from the time I woke up, a plane had just hit the tower. A few minutes later, another plane hit the tower, and then what happened, unintentionally, I guess, was about an hour later one of the buildings fell down, and then another building fell down, and then a plane hit the Pentagon, and then the plane in Pennsylvania. And like the two towers falling down were just a result of the planes hitting them, but it just felt like another attack. So you had almost unrelenting every few minutes for like 3 hours, things just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then when they hit the Pentagon, it really felt like shit was going to hit the fan. The hijackers actually hit the Pentagon with the, hindsight of history. I can look at it right here. 30 minutes after they hit the second tower. But I don't remember, and I've got a pretty good memory about this. I don't remember it being reported that way because I still had the TV on at that point. I remember Bush coming out and saying the word terrorist attack. This would have been like at 8:30 because I'm trying to get everybody up and around. I don't remember the plane hitting the Pentagon at least being reported from what I saw, but I do remember shortly after Bush spoke, every plane in the U.S. was grounded, which again, that felt like another thing. It was one thing after the other, and it kind of had like a sense of just building on itself. I honestly don't think it was right about there that I turned the TV off. I honestly don't think that I heard about the Pentagon being hit until we walked into that Burger King. And then it was even more crushing because I'd had an hour with no media to kind of convince myself that things were fine. And then they weren't. And then there was more news. You heard about the plane that landed in the field in Pennsylvania. And at this point, we went into the Burger King, and this is on the TV, and my wife's watching it. And so I ordered for her because she just didn't care. I ordered for my kids. Got my change. From the point I walked into the Burger King, made my order. We went and sat down. Kids went out and played. They were 9 months. We just kind of put them on a slide, went wee. Packed up, went back to the car. I never heard a person speak besides me. I was the only person I heard in that 35, 40-minute span that we were in that Burger King speak. I remember there was an old couple right by the door still eating their breakfast when we came in. They were both eating and looking out the window, and neither one of them said a word. There was another guy by himself over by the drink machine. Of course, it'd been weird if he'd have been talking to himself. And then there was a couple that you would say middle-aged couple. I don't know what they were doing. They were just sitting. I don't even know if they had food. The employees, after we ordered, all came to the counter and were just standing behind the counter watching the TV. The TV was on like the customer side of the counter where the drinks would be, and then the counter would be. It was in between. And this was 2000. It was one of those, like it's a 32-inch big fat friggin' TV. So we load up. By now it's say 11 o'clock. September in Arkansas at times can be really hot, and I believe this was one of those days. It was warm. We were running the air conditioner. And I happened to notice we'd driven 60 miles. We were a little bit low of gas, and the next stop on this parade of fun was I was going to get my comic books. I had them held back. I had to drive 60 miles. I go every couple of weeks and just pick them up. Well, going across town, I started to see people. Now, this will sound really stupid in like now in hindsight, but it's happened a couple times since this. But I started to see people lined up going down the road, and I didn't understand what they were in lines for. And then I saw them in lines for gas stations. Now, think about this. It didn't even click. I remember saying, hey, turn on the radio, let's see. There must be some kind of giveaway. Your brain does weird things when you've never been through a experience before. I think, again, that's denial, because I look at it now and I'm just like, dude, how did you not know? My wife didn't catch, but again, you got to give her a little bit of leeway on this because she just woke up. No news, went to a Burger King, saw everything in 5 minutes, and she's still digesting. Come to find out, it wasn't a giveaway, stupid. No. It was people freaking out and buying every bit of the gas that they could. So we finally figured this out, almost too late. We had about an eighth of a tank, and we get into a line, and everywhere in town had started to run out of gas. And it's coming on the radio, please stop buying gas if you don't need it. Now, because of my stupidity, we did need it. We're 60 miles from home. And we went to a gas station that was right next to my comic book shop. So literally, I got out, I walked a quarter of a mile to the comic book shop, bought my comic books, walked a quarter of a mile back. By that point, we'd moved half of a quarter of a mile. And as I'm walking by, I see now half the tanks are closed at the gas station. Of course, all the cheap gas is gone, but half of them are out. And I get back in the car, we're running the air conditioner, got 2 little babies, and I'm really calculating in my head what we're going to do if we run out of gas on this day. There's going to be no more gas. There's going to be nobody probably willing or able to come help us. Well, long story short, we did get the gas. We're pretty thankful there. And then we went on, and the day got no better. Everywhere we went, it was just quiet. Took the kids to a Chuck E. Cheese. I know that sounds weird. It sounds really weird to say, how did you spend your September 11th? I went to Chuck E. Cheese. Again, the lie I was telling myself was that we were going to be, this was going to be a good day. Nobody was going to derail it. But I think, like, in retrospect, if I look back at it, it was fear. I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to know about it. I thought maybe if I pretended hard enough, it wouldn't be as bad or it would go away. It didn't help, really. That didn't really assist in any meaningful way. Back then, though, men were different. Men felt they had to always be brave, not really show their feelings. I think that's a little different now. I think, it's one of the good things about the way the world is now. One of very few good things is it's not a badge of honor to not have feelings. I don't know. In a case like that, if I would have freaked out, if it would have done anybody any good. The other thing that I lied to myself about that day a lot was really the fear of being so near the nuclear tower or the nuclear power plant. Like, I gave myself the best arguments. I'm in Arkansas. Most terrorists, anybody aren't going to come that far inland to attack. They're going to hit coast. But still, it was a cause for concern. But I think somewhere, whatever the debate I was having in the back of my head that day, by the time we got done with Chuck E. Cheese, and by the time I had just kind of seen people wandering around like zombies, it kind of just came to the conclusion that no, you're going to go home, and what's going to happen is going to happen. Which what I did. I have just a few other takeaways from that day, and it's really sometimes when you're in the middle of something, you're living it and you don't even notice, but then when you look back on it, you go, how did I not think that was... Like, again, shock. I think everyone I encountered from the time I left the house till I came back home that day was in some form of shock or delirium or whatever you want to say. We talked in the car, me and my wife, on the way to the Burger King. And I told her all this stuff, but we didn't have the radio on. Probably from the time I went into that Burger King, I swear to God this is true. And I ordered the food. Counting that order, I probably said less than 100 words in the next 8 hours. And I heard spoken in my presence way less than that. I don't remember my wife, ex-wife, I don't remember her saying 10 words. When we would go into places, I went in the comic book shop. The guy knew who I was. He's watching the TV. He pulls my box, hands me my books. The money, he rings up the register. I see it. I hand him the money. He hands it back. I don't remember the guy saying a word to me. I remember getting back in the car and saying to my wife at that time, I don't know if we're going to make it. I don't know what we're going to do, but I'll figure it out. And she just nodded. We went to Chuck E. Cheese. I don't remember anybody saying anything. And probably 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, counting the employees, there were maybe 8 people there. They had the TVs on, showing what was going on, and I was sitting there watching Chuck E. Cheese perform. That's how I spent September 11th. Cheese perform while I watched a plane fly into the World Trade Center over and over and over. For about a week there, it didn't matter who you were. Didn't matter what race you were. Didn't matter what religion. I lived in Arkansas. I just never saw anything where, as long as you identified as an American, no matter what you were, and I mean no matter what you were, as long as you identified as an American, people were good, man. Places and things that you would have never seen, people come together and like hug it out. There was no division of color or wealth or religion. Like, everybody seemed like really focused for just a second on what was going on out there. I'll tell you though, it felt good. It felt good to know that like you were with your people, if such a thing existed. I've never felt that before, not in that sense, and not again since. This will sound really weird because it's very different, but I get it a little bit. Just, it kind of puts me in a mindset that maybe when you see these old videos of World War II where everybody was so focused, and you see these guys going to war, getting off like Saving Private Ryan, getting out of that boat and just getting shot to shit. I can almost imagine that to those guys, if you had that kind of like universal where it felt like everybody was with you, I don't know, man. I think that would be really, I guess the word would be intoxicating. But I don't know if we'll ever get there again. Not as a country. That was the last time I really saw people like in this country come together over anything. Sucks that it had to be that. At this point, I think maybe the only hope we have is aliens. Aliens might unite us if they were evil. The only other thing I'll say that I learned that day, I did learn something personal about myself. From the time it started to sink in, and this has never changed. I didn't lie to myself about this. I knew this, and I know this. How I knew I was going to be all right as a father is when all this was going on, I never thought about myself. I never thought, I can't believe this is happening to me. The thing that sat on my shoulder and caused me fear, and literally just like rang through my head, was, my kids are only 9 months old. They're never going to get to see the world. If they live, they're never going to get to see the world as it was. God knows what they're going to have to go through, what kind of hardships or what's going to happen. And that was the cause of my stress that day. More than anything was what was going to happen to my children. One of very few times up to that point in my life, and when something serious happened, there was a thought for someone other than myself, if you want me to be brutally honest about it. Sometimes it takes something like that for you to understand where your values are or what's really important to you. which is a shame. You should be able to figure that out without having the world almost come to an end. Still here, though. Still have those kids. Don't have the wife anymore. That's all I got, guys. Take a moment today and appreciate where you are. Appreciate the United States. I'm not telling you to appreciate leadership. I'm not telling you to appreciate anything. But I will tell you the country that you live in could be a whole lot worse. Thanks for watching. Stay vigilant.